and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I have been spending the last maybe 2 or 3 segments talking about the ranges of instruments, what instruments play 1 octave, what instruments play 2 octaves, and I've been showing you pictures of keyboards and where they are on the keyboard in terms of what they can play. And so what I decided to do today is to bring in not all of my recorders, I have many, but one of each type of recorder, or more than one of each type of recorder, so you can see what they are, hear them, see what they can play, what they sound like. They are different. And I know I've said in Europe there are many orchestras in which everybody is playing a recorder. You may have an orchestra that's like 40 members in it, and they're all playing recorders. So there is such a thing as recorder orchestras, and as I said before, and I'll say it until my dying day, the recorder is not a toy. It's a regular instrument. It's a beautiful instrument, and it plays a lot. If you know how to tweak it, if you know how to encourage it to play in different styles, it can do a lot of playing with a lot of notes, including sharps and flats. But it's treated more or less as a toy by many people, but that's not the case. You can get very expensive ones, and what I want to do today is to go over them and describe them and what they're like and what they sound like. I won't be playing any regular songs, but I'll be playing enough so you'll be able to see what they sound like and what their ranges are. And then I'll go over some charts with you. So I'm going to start off with my old favorite, and this I play a lot. It'll be the C melody recorder. It's otherwise known as a soprano recorder. And it plays a lot. It has a 2-octave range. You hear me playing it a lot. And what I can do is go from one type of 1 octave to the other. Now you can see the range is such that you can play a lot of music on it. It is about 12.5 inches long, and it plays, actually it sounds like you're playing an octave higher than it's written. That's natural to the instrument, but this is the soprano. And the next in line, we would have the alto. Now I have 2 altos here. They're larger. They're bigger, and I have, well, let me show them both together. The interesting thing about these instruments is that they are both Yamahas, and they're both Baroque instruments. One has been specially treated so it looks like a brown wood instrument, and the other is a plain clear instrument. And they are larger, so you have a problem sometimes with the finger stretches, because the finger stretches can be long. Now, I'm going to play a little bit, and I can't stretch due to an injury, I can't stretch my hand too far, but just to see what it sounds like. There are a lot of people that this is their favorite recorder because it is pitched down a little, but it's also a very interesting, very nice sound. And I have to say that some of the most famous composers in history, such as Bach, played and wrote for a recorder, for these recorders, so they are very well used in history for solo work. The problem that you may have if you have small hands, if you look closely, you can see that the finger stretchers are quite wide. Now, it's, and if you have a problem with finger stretchers because your hands are small, or because you have an injury or you have arthritis or whatever, that's going to make a difference as to whether you can play it or not. Children, young children can't play it because they can't stretch their fingers. It's not the fact that you have to have long fingers, it's the stretch between the fingers that you have to consider. But it's a very beautiful instrument, and some people have told me when I play the recorders that this is their favorite one. But anyway, this is the alto, and it's in the key of F. And so the recorders that I have are either going to be pitched in the key of F or in the key of C. The soprano I just showed you a few minutes ago is in the key of C. This is in the key of F. And it's a very beautiful instrument. And you can play a lot of music on it, as long as you can get the finger stretches in control. You notice that for both of these, there are no keys on it at all. So all of the notes have to come from your being able to cover the hole and stretch your fingers enough to do that. On a soprano, that's not a problem because the holes are very close together. But on an alto, you start to get wider and wider and wider for the stretches for the fingers. Now remember, the longer the tube, the deeper the tone. So this is going to be deeper and richer than the soprano, but it's a very, very lovely instrument. They're both Baroque, and when I usually bring them in, I usually bring in the cream-colored one. They're both Yamahas, as I said before. They sound alike. And I think that you can see the holes, the finger holes, a lot better on the cream-colored one than you can on the other one, but they play exactly the same. So finger stretches are the main problem with it, but it's a beautiful instrument, and I use it a lot, and it's a terrific instrument. Now we have the next one, which is going to be the tenor, and you take a look at the size of the tenor. This is quite a large one, and I don't play it much. I used to. I've done solos on it, and they're very beautiful solos. It has a rich, deep tone. You can think of it as having a voice, and it does have a key arrangement at the bottom because you couldn't stretch your hands wide enough to be able to get to the lowest note. The lowest note is down here. It's on the foot joint. But there's no way that you could stretch from here way down to the foot joint. So you have to have a key to accommodate that because your hands just aren't going to be big enough. But remember, as I said before, the longer the tube, the deeper the tone, also the larger the mouthpiece, and the stretches between. I'm only going to play 2 or 3 notes, but you can get the gist of how well it sounds. Now, because of a hand injury, I can't get my finger down there, but it goes deep. It's very deep. I've played some solos on it in which it's amazing. It sounds just like an alto voice. For the wooden instruments, some of them are voiced. There is a way that they are voiced, so they have a voice. And then after years of playing them, they may start to lose their voice, or lose the quality of their voice. So they can be sent in, if they're wood, they can be sent in and they can be revoiced to get their voices back. And I don't know how complicated that is a procedure, but I think they do some scraping and some filing in the inner part of it and get it a little bit different than it was. But this is it. It's a very beautiful, very deep, very rich instrument. It's one of my favorites, and I've used it a lot. I've taught on it. It's just a basic instrument, and it's in the key of C. The soprano and the tenor are in the key of C. The alto and the bass, and I'm going to show you the bass next, are going to be in the key of F. And then there are great basses, which I don't have because they cost thousands of dollars. So here is the bass. We're talking of 32 to 36 inches long here. Very, very large. It's not the largest, however, but it is very, very large. I love it, and you're going to find that it has a number of keys on it. And the reason is that there's no way that you're going to be able to stretch your hands all the way down. That last key, I'm going to hold it up, that last key is way down here on the foot joint, but there's no way you're going to be able to stretch your hands to reach it. So what they have to do is accommodate your needs by having keys put in. There's a key right here. It's hard to see because the instrument is dark and the keys are the same color as the instrument, so it's hard to see it, but there's a key right there. We have a key right here and another one down here. So that's a number of keys, and because the keys are there, it actually is a little simpler to play than the tenor, which is quite long but has no keys. So I'm just going to play this a little bit. And you can go up a little bit in an octave. Now, how did I get that high G? I played a low G. I kept the same fingerings, and to get the high G, I half hold the thumb hole in the back. So I'm going to try to, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but this is a tone hole, and I can't, if I put my thumb on it, I pull my thumb down so that it looks like a half. I have it half covered, not completely covered, but half covered. But I don't go any lower than a half, because if I do, I might not get the note. I'm going to get more of a squealy sound. But you can get octaves on this, and it's very beautiful, and I have played solos on it. It, I think, is probably one of my favorite instruments of all that I have, because it's so beautiful. So about 36 inches long. It is a big one. And I want to show you the smallest of the small. This is a sopranino. The sopranino is about 9 inches long, and it's very high-pitched. It's in the key of F. And the only difficulty you're going to have playing it is that it can get quite squealy, and your fingers are so close together that it's easy not to get the tone holes covered right. It's in perfect pitch. It plays perfectly in the key of F. It's just very small. And as you know, the shorter the tube, the higher the pitch. So this is a little sopranino. They don't make them any smaller than this in terms of playing. I do have some that are a little smaller, but they're kind of like a novelty item, nothing you would use in an orchestra. Now, I have played in orchestras before, and nobody ever brings in a sopranino because they would drive everybody out with a high pitch, especially if they play it loud. So they keep to the basses, and they keep to the altos and the tenors and the sopranos, and you can make a remarkable amount of music with those instruments. Now, there is one other kind of recorder. I don't have one because it costs thousands of dollars. It's called the great bass, sometimes called the big bass, sometimes called the straight bass. They're in the key of C, and I'm about 5'6", 5'7" tall, and it's about the height that I am. We're talking 65, 67 inches tall, and they go straight up. This could make it if I didn't have the curve. This is the curved bass, and sometimes called the curved neck. It's the folded bass, sometimes called the curved neck bass, which I've already showed you. But if you took this part, which is actually the neck piece, and you had it standing up, it would approach some of the height of those great basses, except the great basses are even taller. And they are so tall, people usually play them standing up. And instead of having a mouthpiece, they have what's known as a bocal, and a bocal is like a curved metal piece that comes out of the side of it, and they can put it in their mouth and blow into it. So they don't have a mouthpiece in the sense that this is a mouthpiece. This is a fipple mouthpiece. All of the instruments, all of the recorders have the fipple mouthpieces, including the smallest one. But the largest of the great basses, you play with a bocal. It's just that little metal tube, and it fits in your mouth and you blow into it. And it doesn't come from the top of the instrument. You'd never be able to reach it if it did. It comes over from the side of the instrument close to where your mouth would be. It also has a little metal stand on the bottom. So when you play it, you actually put it on the floor, but it's not the instrument itself. It's not the bell of the instrument, which is right here that's on the floor. It's that metal piece. It's a kind of a protective piece, and you put it on the floor and it stabilizes it, and then you can play it, you know, and it's very, very large. I would love to have one, but they cost so much money, and I would probably not use it very much, but they cost tons of money, but they are beautiful. And all of those basses, by the way, are in the key of C. So you've got the sopranino and the alto in the key of F. You have got the bass, you've got the tenor, and you've got the soprano in the key of C. So most of the recorders are going to be either C or F in key. So that's what they are. Now I'm going to go over some of these, some of this information for you. If we want to look at the chart here, I'm going to go over it once again. These are the recorders. The soprano is also called the descant. It's a melody instrument about 12.5 inches long in the key of C. The alto is also called the treble. It would be the principal instrument in an orchestra because of its tone and because of its quality. It's in the key of F, but it's considered to be the principal instrument, also called the treble. It's in the key of F. And the great composers, Bach and Handel, and so forth, wrote sonatas for that particular instrument. And it's about 18 inches long. The tenor, which I showed you, which is one of the real big ones, is 25.5 inches long, and it is a melody instrument in the key of C, and it's used a lot in ensembles because the quality of its tone is such that it can just blend in. The bass, I'm using the folded bass here, is about 36 inches long in the key of F. And the other basses which I don't have, the great basses, the straight basses that I've talked about before, they're in the key of C, and they're a good 54 inches long. They're very, very large. And then we have the little tiny sopranino, which is about 9.5 inches long in the key of F. It's very high pitched. So that is the difference. This is the way that these instruments are constructed. I made a sketch. Actually, I made the sketch of the folded bass. I had this was in a chart, but it didn't include the folded bass, so I included that by drawing it myself. And so you have the soprano right here, the sopranino right here, the alto right here, the tenor right here, the folded bass right here with its curve, and then the great basses. The great basses are so tall, they're just absolutely huge. Now this has a bocal attached to the top, but you can see it goes down on the side, so you're not actually blowing into the top. Now I've seen them at different lengths and in different places so that people would be able to play them. A lot of times they're just played standing up. Now, the ranges of the instruments, and I want to go over this a little bit, watch my time here. The instruments that I did not bring in that are just one octave instruments, such as the flutophone, song flute, ocarinas, some of the melody flutes, the tonettes, and the fifes. A lot of those are just one octave instruments. So you have your C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then the two octave instruments are the recorders that I brought in and some others. They play from here to here. They just add another octave. The recorders, penny whistles, sasutos, some ocarinas, operas, the melodicas, some melody flutes, and fifes. The fifes you can have in 1 or 2 octave ranges. They go from here to here. Now the traditional flute, such as I normally play in orchestras, will take it way up here. Here's another C. So you have C to C, and the second octave C ends here, the third octave C ends here, and the flutes can do that. None of the 2 octave instruments can do that last thing, that last octave, but the regular flutes can. This is the high C, and this is going to be the C above high C. And there is another octave that the pianos can get beyond it. So I just made a notation. Pianos beyond can go 1 octave beyond here, and they don't actually write for it because by the time you get through, you get 10 ledger lines, which is too much for anyone to read. So they use the symbol 8VA, which says play it an octave higher than it's written. So you would take these notes and play them higher, 1 octave higher. The piano can do that. The other instruments cannot. So here again, those are the ranges. And of course, I've shown you the instruments so you get some kind of an idea of that. And here's another way of showing it. Here's a piano. Here's your low C. Now on a regular piano, you'd have a B and an A below that, but I didn't put that in. So here's your C, 1 octave, and those are the instruments, the melody instruments that I've talked about is 1 octave instruments. Here's your second octave, and then you get your things like your sassotos and penny whistles and recorders. And here's your third octave, which the flute itself can play, but the other instruments can't. And here's the last octave, which is just piano. Piano can get that, the other instruments cannot. So you can see how the keyboard is arranged so that there are difference in the ranges of the instruments. And that's important to remember if you're in an orchestra. Now, I'm just about running out of time, so I think what I'm going to do is continue this next time and show you more. So we'll close it here, and I'll continue with this next time on the next segment, and we'll just get through. I want to compare the different kinds of recorders and what they can do by bringing them in for you to actually see them. And I do use these instruments, and I use these instruments quite a bit. So we'll close it here, and please join me next time.